Welcome back to this week's episode of Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles. On this Thursday's episode, we're going to take our hognose snake from his tub and we're going to set him up in this 18 by 18 by 18 Exoterra front opening enclosure, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Stick around. So first thing is, you'll notice that I've got quite a few of these empty enclosures. I'm trying to get a lot of my animals outside of their racks, outside of their tubs, and into display pieces because I'm more interested now in looking at the animals than breeding them. Although I do have some breeding projects going on, which of course you can check the links in the description if you want to know a little bit more about breeding hognose snakes. Now the animal that we're going to put in this terrarium here is a full-grown male western hognose snake. He's an anacondomorph and he's 100% het for albino. So I do plan to breed this animal. However, he's so darn good looking that I don't want to hide him inside of a tub. So here's how we're going to do it. First of all, clean your tank. Make sure that whatever it is that you have that you got secondhand, or even if it's brand new, clean it very thoroughly and make sure that there's nothing that's contaminating the actual enclosure, and that way you're... So I've done that. You don't need to watch me clean a terrarium. I'm sure you can figure out how to do that on your own. And basically all we do is have a setup here. No UVB light needed. I've got a basking bulb instead of underbelly heat, which is something that I could have done, but I'm going to use a naturalistic substrate, which we're going to get to next. So I want the heat to come from above, and these are diurnal animals, which means that they're going to use that basking spot. Maybe not for basking like an iguana would or something like that, but they are going to use it and they're going to be active during the day. So let's go ahead and put the substrate in first. So what we've got here is coconut coir. That's what I like to use as the substrate. I like to use a natural substrate that'll hold a little bit of humidity, but also is loose, because that way you don't have to change out paper every other day. You just scoop up the poop whenever it's ready to do that, and that's it. And also for feeding as well, if for whatever reason the snake just plays around with the animal and then discards it, well, you just scoop it up and all the stuff around it and you're good to go. So what I've got here is a big bucket of EcoEarth. EcoEarth is just what I use, or actually what it is it's Beyond Peat. It's an EcoEarth substitute. It costs about a third of the price. It's something that we can get here in Canada quite readily. I'm sure there's something similar. Coconut coir is what you're after. And you can actually mix it with sand if you like, and that way it'll hold burrows. But this stuff holds burrows really well. So take a hose to it, put it in a big bucket. First of all, it comes in a big brick. Then put it into a bucket, put some water on it so that it expands. And then you've got yourself an actual substrate that you can put inside of your enclosure, and it'll be ready to go. A couple things with this. What I suggest is let it dry out for a few days, because you don't want it sopping wet. It's not good for your animal, especially an animal that you don't need crazy humidity. Hognose snakes being between 30 and 50%, depending on who you ask. Of course, we have a full care guide if you want to know everything about hognose snakes. It's up here or here. It's somewhere up in the corner here. You can take a look at that. And then the other thing too is stick your bucket of substrate as it's drying inside your reptile room, or somewhere where it's going to be a similar temperature to whatever terrarium it is that you're going to be putting it in, or just put it in your terrarium and leave it for a day so that you can monitor the temperatures, which is what you should do anyway. So the idea is just put it in a nice thick layer. If you're using an undertank heater, you don't want it to be super thick, because then it's not going to permeate through the substrate. Now, of course, what you could do is you could use paper or some sort of reptile carpet, whatever it is that you feel comfortable with. It's really up to you. So we're going to put the EcoEarth in now, or that's what I'm doing. That's what I should be doing at this point. And then when that's all set up, I'll show you the furnishings. Now we've got a nice thick layer of damp but not wet substrate, the coconut coir, on the bottom of the enclosure now. So what we could do is now we could put a background in if you wanted to do that. I just don't have one right now. Project for another time. And then of course you want to put the fixtures in as well. You need a water bowl, you need hides and all that type of stuff. And because this is kind of a smaller terrarium, it's going to still have a hot side and a cool side, but instead of doing side to side, I'm doing corner to corner. Because it's a perfect square, I'm putting the heat source on the very back corner of the terrarium, and that way you've got the hot spot over there and you've got the cool spot over here. And I know that it works because I had a leopard gecko in here up until earlier today, and now they're in a tub system because they're breeding. They've got a girlfriend right now. Jerry's got a girlfriend. So I know that it works. What I would suggest with any terrarium or any setup is take a couple days and check to make sure that the temperatures are what you need them to be before you just toss your animal in there, which is what I'm going to do as well. So let's go ahead and put some fixtures in. So the basics for setting up your enclosure once you have the substrate down is very simple, really. You want to make sure that you have got some sort of hide for them on either side of the enclosure. I think that's really important. And then you want to have something for the enrichment of the animal. This is something that I didn't put as much emphasis on as I should have when I first started this channel, never mind a few years ago. And I think what's really important to realize is that these animals are intelligent enough that they're going to know if they're in a place where they can explore or not. And you don't need a giant enclosure for this, but have something like have a log for them to climb over or through, or have a substrate that they can burrow in, or a plant for them to hide behind. Give them a giant range of areas that they can be comfortable in. And of course, give them a water bowl, because dead snakes are the worst kind. They don't move, and they're not very much fun to handle, and they smell bad too. So I want to say thank you for a couple things too, because anyone who's watched this and commented on these videos, I take what you say seriously. If you give constructive advice, I really do listen. And in my first video, or my second video where I did the Hognose Snake care guide, it was the second video I ever did, I really learned a lot from it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to show off here, is that I take the advice, and whatever it is that people give you as a constructive criticism, take it to heart. I mean, if they're just being jerks on the internet, that's one thing. But if someone actually gives you a bit of advice that you can use, such as give them more enrichment, make it look a little bit nicer, and you're going to enjoy your animal more, and I totally agree with that. So for those of you who gave me the advice, I really do appreciate it. I hope that you guys can appreciate that, hey, you weren't just talking in vain. So with that said, let's go ahead and put the enclosure together, and let's make it look pretty. We've got one hide on one side here. This is a log, and it's got a lot of openings, and they can actually get under it if they wanted to. It's a very light object. It's very hollow, so I'm not worried about them getting crushed, of course. The water bowl, I kind of dug in there a bit because I don't want the snake to get underneath and then maybe hurt itself. And then we've got the cave here, which of course is going to be one of the hides. So you've got a hide on either side, and we've got a plant as well. So if it doesn't want to be inside of something, but it still wants to be hidden, you have that option. And then because it's a hognose snake with his cute little digging face, his little shovel face, he can just dig all the way through. So he can make a tunnel, and you'd never see him if you didn't want to be. But the really cool thing about hognose snakes, westerns anyway, diurnal snakes, and they're out all day. Like, they're really fun to watch. I can't wait till I get more PVC enclosures, which is the idea. And I'm going to have the 4-foot ones split in two, so that I've got two 2-foot ones, and then I can keep more of my hognose in enclosures that I can actually see, rather than keeping them tucked away inside of enclosure tubs, rather. So before we put Nicky into his enclosure here, just take a second, if you don't mind, put a comment below and let me know what you think. What would I have done differently? If it were you, what would you have done differently? Did I do a good job? Is there something I could improve upon? I always want to make sure that the next one is better than the last, of course. And if you love videos like this, please subscribe. Totally appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for letting me hit 800 subscribers this week. That is much beyond what I ever thought I could do in the first year. And of course, it's much appreciated. I couldn't do it with you. You're the ones who hit the subscribe button, so thanks. Well, now little Nicky is inside of his enclosure here, and I called him little Nicky because he's kind of devil-like in that he hisses and puffs up and he thinks he's a cobra, but he's beautiful. I'm really glad that I've done this and I have this enclosure for him all ready to go. Now, of course, the temperature, I know exactly that it is the right temperature. I've had this tank set up with the exact same substrate before. So what I would suggest for you, though, is set it up a couple days prior to having your snake inside of it, or even bringing it home, so you have the right temperatures, right humidity, and everything is good to go. And of course, again, if you want to know about hognose snakes and how to set them up properly, then the description is in the below. And that's it. So thank you very much for coming back and watching this week's episode of Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles. Let me know what you think. Next week, we'll be back with 2 more videos, because I do put out videos every Monday and Thursday, which means I'll see you next week.